The blue light revelation, that blue light from your phone, casting shadows across your face at midnight. Have you ever paused to ask yourself where your sexual energy truly goes? This isn't about sexual behavior itself. This is about the very life force, that primal creative flame flowing through your veins. Perhaps it's dissolved into mindless social media scrolling, scattered into fleeting pornographic images that exist for mere seconds on your screen. Maybe it's burned up in meaningless online arguments or impulsive shopping sprees, filling a void you can't even name. Let's call this naked truth what it is, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Your most primal energy, your sexual force, has been domesticated. It's no longer an eagle soaring free. It's become a docile pet, fed cheap dopamine scraps so it never demands to fly again. You know this. You feel it in your chronic fatigue, your inability to focus, that endless hunger for something deeper, something real. That's the call from your own shadow, the rejected part of yourself that contains your rawest power, the system's design. They've taught you that releasing this energy is normal. They call it entertainment, call it living life to the fullest. But what if it's all a sophisticated system designed to drain you? What if the instant gratification they sell you is just a transaction where you're trading gold for candy, trading power for pleasure, trading clarity for distraction? This isn't cheap spirituality or religious morality. This is depth psychology. This is shadow work. This is the instinctual message hidden in your impulses. From a Jungian perspective, we don't speak of easy truths. We speak of buried realities. Jung warned about this decades ago, but almost no one understood. What you don't bring into the light of consciousness will manifest in your life as fate. And your fate, if you continue wasting this core energy, isn't freedom. It's emptiness, anxiety, becoming a ghost drifting through your own life. The plague of modern disconnection. Look around you. Anxiety spreading like wildfire. Antidepressants prescribed like candy. Shallow relationships that begin and end with a swipe. This isn't coincidence. This is a result of society that doesn't just normalize sexual energy. It turns it into currency, something to burn daily without realizing you're becoming spiritually impoverished. We're trained to release, not to transform. To scatter, not to transcend. But Jung discovered something radical. This energy isn't a random bodily impulse. It's the fuel of the soul. When you repress it out of fear, you become sick. When you waste it, you become empty. But when you learn to contain it, to redirect it, you awaken something wild, something the ancients call the inner fire, something the modern world fears because it can't control it. The dragon within. Jung spoke of the necessity of facing your inner dragon. This dragon is a part of you that wants instant gratification, demands pleasure without commitment, runs from emptiness through artificial stimulation. The treasure the dragon guards isn't gold. It's your forgotten potential, your pure life force. The dragon isn't killed. It's tamed. And you can only do that if you learn to resist the urge to surrender every time your body screams for release. Do you know what happens when you hold back? When you decide not to react as you always do, a threshold opens. A strange silence descends. Initially, the silence is uncomfortable, empty and anxious. It's the void you've always tried to fill with noise. But if you can endure it, if you stay with it, something miraculous happens. The energy about to die in a brief ecstatic moment begins circulating through your thoughts. It becomes clarity, direction, instinct, and most importantly, will. The loss of will. That's the real issue. You've lost your will, not through weakness, but through overstimulation. Every time you surrender, you train your mind to obey rather than resist. And every act of surrendering to instant desire is a vote for emptiness. Want to know why you can't focus? Why you procrastinate? Why you feel disconnected? Because you poured away the best part of yourself, time after time, until you don't feel whole anymore. Each unconscious surrender to impulse is losing a gram of your integrity. The law of transcendence. Observe the law. What do those who transcend mediocrity do? Monks, artists, warriors, leaders, visionaries, they've all undergone periods of deep restraint. Not necessarily about sex, but about energy. They learned to close noisy doors to open silent gates. They understood that desire is a compass, but it should never be the captain. They experience the uncomfortable silence that arises when they don't surrender to impulse, and they survived it. How many times have you crossed that threshold? How many times have you faced desire directly without being conquered by it? Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Restraint isn't repression. It's strategy. It's preparation. It's mastering the flame without extinguishing it. The Anima and Animus integration. Have you heard of the Anima and Animus? They're the inner manifestations of feminine and masculine principles we all carry within. Jung taught that until you integrate your Anima, if you're a man, or your Animus, if you're a woman, you'll live as an exile from your own soul, constantly seeking outside what you haven't understood inside. And do you know how this lack of integration manifests? Through sexual obsession, through uncontrollable attraction, through emotional dependency, through endless hunger, a relentless search for something you feel is missing, but you're not missing anything. What's happening is you haven't learned to dialogue with your unconscious. You're seeking in other bodies a wholeness you can only find within yourself. Sexual desire, in its most obsessive form, is nothing more than the soul's desperate attempt to restore itself. And that's where restraint becomes revolutionary, not because of morality, but because of self-possession. The alchemy of transformation. By stopping that cycle of external seeking, you force yourself to turn inward. You begin to listen, to see, to interpret. And you discover that your desire isn't for another body, but for your other inner half. That what you crave isn't physical contact, but spiritual union. That your desire isn't for pleasure, but for awakening. This changes everything. The issue isn't becoming a martyr. The issue isn't denying your humanity. The issue is reclaiming it. Protecting your energy as if it were gold, because it is gold. Every time you restrain yourself, you're cultivating something sacred. You're building an inner temple, a place no one can invade, manipulate, or drag you away from. You're giving your soul the space it needs to rise, the sacred territory. Your body is just a surface, but your energy is sacred territory. And every time you decide not to react like a conditioned animal, you're writing a new story. You're breaking centuries of automation. You're refusing to become part of the thoughtless herd that only consumes, only exists without understanding why. But this isn't easy. The path of self-mastery is lonely. No one applauds your restraint. No one celebrates your silence. No one notices the power you're cultivating until it manifests. And when it does, it's too late for them because you become something else. The transformation. Your gaze changes. Your presence becomes weighted, magnetically mysterious. You don't need to say much or justify yourself, because your energy speaks for you. And that's something that can be faked, because it comes from within, forged in a fire, restrained desire, redirected impulse, integrated shadow. You don't need to tell anyone about it. You don't need to prove it. The world senses it, and it doesn't know what it is, but it feels it. And when that happens, you can't go back, because you've tasted the feeling of walking without chains. The ultimate question. So now I leave you with a question only you can answer. Will you continue depleting yourself through impulses you don't understand? Or will you begin filling yourself with yourself? Because right there, in that choice, lies the difference between a life that's directed and a life that's dragged along. Between a soul that burns bright and a soul that's broken, never having truly shone. The flame doesn't extinguish. It transforms. And in that transformation lies the key to reclaiming not just your energy, but your very essence. The choice, as always, is yours.